Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Advanced Self-Awareness course. This is the first thing, this is the first installment um, of that. Um, so, for today, we're just going to go over some brief, some important things that should help you frame the rest of the course. Some general things. And then the next installments will be on specific topics. I will say as well that this course is kind of like a companion to a book that I don't know when it's gonna exist. I guess I'm currently writing it, and it should be very good, but it's going to take a while. And I thought that this is probably a better way of getting the important stuff out there. So first things first, as I always do in these courses. We're going to go over two things. So, this course, and basically everything else, but this course is being delivered with the specific intention of this, but you should approach everything else like this. But this course is being given with the intention that you're not going to take it like dogma or doctrine. There's going to be no blind belief. You want to take the ideas, live with them, think about them, compare them to previous experience, think about them from a whole load of different viewpoints. We'll talk about that later. But basically, this isn't the kind of thing where you should go away thinking, yeah, I know everything, because I can follow this course to the letter. That's not the point. The point of this is that you will be able to, or is that you can take what I've given away, you can think about it, and then you might come to a conclusion that is better than the conclusion that you were previously at, or even this is something that you've never thought about before, and or at least in this angle. So this is just something to make people think a bit. Secondly, language is bad. Language is awful. When I say things, I'm saying the translation of the thoughts and the translation of the true ideas into English, and then you're taking it in English and translating it to thought, to the ideas. I mean, that's like translating some kind of advanced Chinese poem into shorthand, Tokipona, Morse code. Like, it's Chinese whispers. It's not, it's very hard to get across your full intention on something in language. So, the answer to that is, in my opinion, pretty simple. Basically, most things that most things that I disagree with, or most things that other people disagree with me on, it's just a communication error. We don't disagree at all. And that's not to say that people all think the same thing, and everybody has to believe the same thing. But quite a lot of the time, when people disagree with something, they don't actually disagree with the idea. They disagree with the way that the idea has been communicated to them, and they interpret that as something which is they interpret the communication of the idea as the be all and end all. So that also means that people who are less good at communicating things are often interpreted to have really stupid ideas when they don't. It's just a way of communicating it. So keep that in mind, that there might be things that you disagree with. If there is, just talk to me about it. Like, it's that simple. Because because it's a Discord server, if there's any burning questions or any things that you disagree with me on, just talk to me about it. Because probably it's a communication thing where one of us has messed up. I forgot to say this actually, but for those of you listening on YouTube, go to rosefolk.xyz or look at any of the links in the description to join the Discord server that this is hosted in. We do stuff like this all the time. Anyway, yeah, it's discussion. Discussion is very, very important, and it needs to be free and open discussion. There are plenty of times that I've seen somebody says something, and then all the other people in the room ask them questions that just kind of skim the surface. And they give answers to those questions, but when everybody leaves the room, they're like, oh, that was awful, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That guy does probably know what he's talking about, but because you're not asking what you actually want to ask out of fear of, am I being too critical, am I being whatever, you're not getting the resolution. So it's important that anybody listening to this, and there's who encounters a big problem with something, just talk to me about it. That's the way to find out. And I think it is crucial, because when you can get past communication, when you can identify the core idea and look at it and examine it and think about it, that's when you can know if you actually agree with something or if you just disagree with the way that it was communicated to you. So yeah. Now, in terms of self-awareness, this is something which I call a DS. This is important to do before you teach anything, in my opinion, but also you can just do them all the time because it's good for people. So DS, what does that mean? First word, dogma. Second word, Socratic discussion. It's important that people don't just take things as a fact from a science book that they have to believe, or it's something to be agreed with or disagreed with right off the bat. People, it's important that people think, and it's important that people think more, because a bold statement, but I don't think generally we teach people how to think in the right way. There are 12, let me get a thing up about this actually, but there are 12 viewpoints that if you look at something through all of these 12 viewpoints, you'll probably come to a good conclusion on that. But there's also some other things nowadays as well. So this is the way that I look at things, and I think it's good to look at things like this, and I think it's also good to kind of show others that this is possible. And it's not, I'm not trying to push a specific way of thinking onto other people, but it's a almost framework that can be used if needed. So I'll go through the 12 viewpoints. I'll go through some other stuff as well. So first viewpoint, materialism. There's no self, there's no spirit, there's no anything. It's just the material world. How does it work in a kind of mechanical sense? Spiritism. The material world is only a manifestation of the underlying spiritual, and developing the internal stuff, the truth will come through that. Realism, just looking at what is real, just looking at the external world. Idealism, ideas. I mean, I'm going to go through these quite quickly because I want to move on to other stuff. But mathematism, rationalism, psychism. So that's like the mind and ideas. Pneumatism, which is like, I'm trying to do this quickly. It's with the spirit. Monadism. So the self, the individuality. I mean, I'll include a link in the description to something that people can read about this if interested. I'm just going to list the rest of them, and you can just do the research if you want to. Dynamism, so like forces and energies behind things. Phenomenalism, and sensationalism. Those are the 12 viewpoints. If you look at an idea with all of those viewpoints, then probably you'll come to a better, more fuller understanding of the thing. But there's also some other things. So there are different ways of thinking. There is just like pure rational thinking. There is feeling thinking, heart thinking, and there is also thinking, experiential thinking, so thinking about what you've experienced in the past. Each one of those is valid. Each one of those is good. But if you go too far with each of those, things go wrong and you start taking things wrongly. It's about a balance of those things, and just knowing about those things, just having the awareness about those things is important, because you can try now to consciously balance between the 12 viewpoints and between head thinking, heart thinking, hand thinking almost. There's also two other things. There's also one other thing. I mean, well, it's two things, but this is another viewpoint that I like to do, which is oh no, it is two things. So you've got the idea, you've got people who are staunch critics of it, they hate it, and you've got people who believe it and they love it. Looking at the idea through both of those perspectives is important. If you can look at something through both of these viewpoints, then you will probably start to find the things that you agree with, and you'll probably start to find the things that you disagree with on either side. And if you do that in combination with the 12 viewpoints and in combination with the head, heart, and hands thinking, if you do all that, then you'll probably have a good idea of whatever the idea is, whatever the thing is. So two things. A, it's important that you need to apply this to... There are many things that we just take for granted and we're like, yeah, yes, this is that, or that is that. No, you need to think about everything. Because if you don't, that's how big misjudgments happen. And if you don't, that's how things that could turn into bad situations could happen. So quite a lot of the time people, what they do with their children, most of the time it's just what happened to them. But not all the time, but most people just, they do it. They do whatever they do with their children. They deal with it however they deal with it. But if you don't think about each individual action, each individual person, and the underlying ideas behind the actions, then you're not really resolving. You're not doing it properly, to put it simply, because it leaves a margin for error that can lead to bad situations, and in situations where you have a power over a child, to say do this, do that, it's bad when there are injustices, because it imbues into the child that there are injustices everywhere and they happen to them all the time. But we'll move on to that later. Anyway, that's the DS. Next. One last thing on the DS. The way that I like to do this is it's acting like an AI. Now, obviously, don't take this this is a very loose thing. Don't strip yourself of humanity, but the metaphor is important. So, firstly, you take in the prompt, whatever the prompt is. So, prompt could be an idea, a situation, whatever. And you analyze it through your data, through your training data, through all of your prior experiences, and then you also analyze it with each of those viewpoints that I just talked about. Also, I forgot to mention this one. There is staunch believer, a critic, and somebody who's never encountered anything before, any kind of knowledge. That's a difficult one to do, but it's interesting. Anyway, you take the ideas, you live with them. This is important. You don't do all this stuff right away. These are archetypes, and these are ways of thinking. So the words and the categories, they don't actually matter. What matters is the actual doing. And this takes a while to do on anything. It takes, just in terms of one idea, you might be there for months, and it's not like a sit down thing. It's not like you sit down and you think, I'm going to think about this in this way. It's just that, you think, you live with ideas, it happens, you look at it through these viewpoints, slowly. It's not that much of a serious thing where you should be sitting down and thinking, I'm going to look at it through this viewpoint today. It's just something that happens. And you take these ideas and you live with them and you process them, and then you come to your output, in the AI metaphor, which is your opinion on the thing, but your true opinion on the thing. This is assuming that you have all the information around it, which we'll move on to that later. But this is your a whole opinion that sure can be developed more, but it's good as it is. So yeah, that's the output. The output is the opinion, and then from that opinion you can go out and practice stuff. Next, and this is important, theory checks. What are theory checks? They are some of, in my opinion, the most important things in terms of self-awareness. If you don't have the predisposition to do this, generally, you should do this consciously. So theory checks is literally just thinking, do I want to do this? Does this actually line up with my does this actually line up with what I believe? Am I doing what I think, or am I just doing something else, or am I giving up into instinct, or am I doing something that I don't agree with? And it seems nobody wants to think that they're doing something wrong. Nobody wants to think that they're doing nobody wants to think that they're not acting in the way that they want to, but they do. I have this one example of, at a campsite, there was this person who was there with their children. The children were, I can't remember how old they were, like teenager. One was a teenager, the other one was whatever. But anyway, I had shown this person a book with a page in it that said, something along the lines of, it was like a graphic thing, so the page was just like essentially like a quote that took up a whole page, but it said something along the lines of, if you invalidate a human, if you strip someone of their humanity and their freedom, then you are spitting in the face of all of humanity, basically. And she said, "Oh, that's good. You should put that on a poster." And then later on in the same day, she called her son a half-human for kicking a ball next to a lake in a not dangerous manner whatsoever. He knew what he was doing, but yeah. So it's just things like that like, if you realized, hey, this is not me. This is not like, I'm not. Something's wrong. This is not me. This is not what I want to be. This is not my opinion. You have the ability to change that. You have the ability to be the cause and not the effect of what you do and how you live. But you just have to be aware of that, and that's what self-awareness is about, basically. But it's just so theory checks. Checking theory is the important part. Checking your theory in relation to your practice. Now, here's a thing. Here's a practice that you can do if you want. This is a general. Now, theory checks are something you just do internally. It's just like, in a situation which you think is normal, which you think doesn't need any thought because you can just handle it and it just works because you've been doing it forever. You just think, hey, is what I'm doing, aligning with my highest good? Do I want to be doing this? Does this really genuinely line up with what I think? Don't try to make excuses for yourself. If there's a mistake that you have made, acknowledge that there was a mistake and move on from it. And take it as experience, but move on from it. Here's a practice. This isn't necessarily a theory check, but it's just something you should do. And this is something you should do while you are doing something boring, while you're cleaning, while you're going to the shop, specifically, shopping, or, you're doing the things that you do every single day, saying hello to people. Just ask yourself this set of questions, and just see where it goes and be as genuine as you possibly can. So just about a thing that you are doing. I mean, the ideal thing is shopping for these questions, but it can be for other things. It's just for menial stuff that you do in your life and you don't even think about. Day-to-day stuff. And so these are the questions that you should ask about that. A, what is this? How did it... No, 1. What is this? How did it originate? 2, what am I doing this? Could I be doing something else? Does doing this cause more good than bad? Or does it cause more bad than good? Do I still want to do this? 3, does doing this limit my freedom in any way? 4, do I want to do this? 5, who else would not want me to do this? And who else would want me to do this? That's just a set of questions that you can ask yourself about everyday things, and it is quite potent because quite a lot of the time you don't realise how bad things that people do every day are. For example, and this is just a brief example that we'll probably touch on in a later thing, but when people ask you how you are, if somebody says, hi, how are you? They don't care how you are. They're not saying, hi, how are you? There's a moth, oh my god. But they're not saying, hi, how are you? They're saying, they're not really saying words at all. They're not speaking. They're not using language. What they're doing is, they're just making mouth vibrations that are pleasant. Sure, they know what the words mean. Sure, that the other person knows what the words mean, but it's just a default. It's just an automatic thing that people do. They don't care how you are, and Rudolf Steiner talks about this. I can't remember where, but he did talk about this at some point, where it's just like they don't care how you are, and unless you really care about how somebody is, don't ask them how they are. It's just like automatic speaking. It's not good for you, because the more things you do in your life that are unconscious and that don't really matter, and there's no self-awareness about it, it's just automatic, the more things can sneak in that are like that. So a couple of the things. So firstly, everything I'm talking about here, and everything I've talked about, and everything I'm going to talk about in the course, unless I say specifically otherwise, this is stuff that you can just straight up say to people. Obviously, put it all in context, make sure that you're not missing anything out, but this is stuff that you can go out and bring into the world if you want to. It's stuff that you can definitely give to other people, and it will probably be of help to them because they would probably have never thought of these things in this way before. And yeah, secondly, on internalization. So this is something that I call info to knowing. So basically, there is a thing in most mainstream academic things, institutions, whatever, they will teach you information. And the expectation is that you take in the information, you remember it. And then at a later date, you can regurgitate it. And maybe they'll teach you the information multiple times, but the general gist is it's just information that you need to remember and write down later. But in real internal work, information does nothing. If you listen to this course and you only take the names of the categories and the procedures of what you're supposed to do, it's not going to do you any good. Internalizing it, obviously, analyzing it in the way that I talked about before, so it's truly a free decision on your part to internalize it or to reject it. But having it as information, having it as something which is truly internalized, having it as something which you know about and you can describe yourself and not just regurgitate descriptions given to you by other people, that is important. Because, again, the internal work basically cannot be done unless you have the knowledge and not the information. Yeah. One other thing before I forget this. Self-awareness and self-awareness and internal development and personal development and moral development always goes hand in hand with spiritual development. If you do the 6 basic exercises, if you do the recapitulation thing every single day, if you do meditation for ages, if you do all that, then probably this stuff will come as a given anyway, and you will have you'll have a good self-awareness and good moral development and good personal development. But if you do it properly, then that will come. So there were lots of people who, at least in the Rosefolk server, who probably don't even need this because it's just stuff that has came to them. And if people did that kind of stuff, then there would be no need for a course like this because this would just be given to everybody. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. I'm going to touch on one last thing, and then we're going to end it. There are 2 laws. There are 2 spiritual laws. So these are laws that are uh, held important by initiates, in terms of passing on knowledge. So, withhold from no man the knowledge that is due to him, and no one shall receive any occult knowledge until he is worthy. Basically, everybody deserves all the knowledge. Everybody deserves everything. You know, maybe not. Everybody is owed, essentially, knowledge of everything. If you have it, you should probably give it to other people. But no one. Don't give people knowledge if they're not ready for it, and that's a very key thing. You know, there are plenty of examples that I can think of somebody who really needs to know something, somebody who's really making mistakes, but it's very, very obvious that if you tell them, they're not going to take it very well, and they're not aware that they're kind of making mistakes. So you would cause more harm to yourself and to the person by saying, hey, this is what's happening. So to kind of simplify these laws a bit, though, you know, if you want to read about them, The Way of Initiation, Rudolf Steiner, but free on rudolfsteinerarchive.org. But that's more spiritual than we're looking at in this course specifically, but it's a good read if it's your kind of stuff. But to kind of simplify these laws, there is, firstly, don't withhold anything from people. All the knowledge should be free, and everybody should have it. That also, nobody should receive any knowledge, that nobody should receive anything that they're not ready to hear, because that causes quite a lot of problems. And you know, I could talk about examples and why, but you've probably seen this at some point in your life beforehand, because these are very interesting things to just go back and compare and like contrast things that have happened previously with these laws, because it's interesting. I don't know. It's a good thing it's an interesting thing to think about, and from my experience, they consistently prove themselves to be true. You know, if you try and give people all the knowledge, if you know something, if somebody's making big mistakes, but they're not, you know, it's their mistakes. They themselves need to own those mistakes, and realize that they're doing wrong and come up with a solution themselves. If you just go up to them and say, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, you can do something else, they're going to get angry at you. It's going to cause everybody damage, and it's not going to solve anything. So, does anybody have any questions before we stop? I'll give you time to type. But while you're typing, I will say that if you want to listen to these live and maybe ask questions, then come to the Rosefolk Discord server, link in the description, or go to rosefolk.xyz if you like typing. Yeah. So this is the link. This is the website that I use. This guy is not right on everything. I will say this as well. This guy is not right on everything. He's got some very, very good stuff, but he's not right on everything. So keep that in mind. The article that I've linked to is generally all sound and correct, but yeah. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you to the people who came live, and thank you for the people who came. Thank you to the people who watched on YouTube. Any final questions? Cool. Cool.